that Mom instilled in us throughout her lifetime. One was the importance of family. The second was the importance of the temple. And the third was giving your all in whatever you do. I will start with the third one, giving your all in whatever you do. That was extremely important to our mother. And at the workplace, she gave it her all. Mom worked at Wayne Town Hall for over 25 years, and according to Mom, she was the only competent legal secretary working there. She gave it her all. She would get to work extra early every day, and she would stay late whenever it was necessary. As a side note, she wasn't paid for those extra hours that she worked, and it drove my father, Murray, crazy. Regarding her motto of giving it her all, it carried over to her everyday life. She was the most organized person I know. She had labels and files for everything. She was the model of efficiency. She even had detailed instructions for me regarding what to do upon her passing. Everything laid out in easy-to-follow sequential steps. That was typical of my mother. My mother was also fiscally responsible. In fact, one of the first items on her list of things for me to do upon her passing was to cancel her cell phone account immediately. She had previously told me that once she passed, she really did not think that she would have much use for her cell phone anymore. Always thinking practically and being fiscally prudent. Because of her organization regarding her funeral and her pre-planned arrangements that were spelled out in detail for me, when Mom passed on Monday at around 5 a.m., we were able to arrange all aspects of her funeral by around 8 o'clock in only 3 hours. The funeral home actually gave us a medal for beating the previous record. That's our mother. She wouldn't want any of us inconvenienced by her lack of preparation for this day. And her goal was always to do everything that she did exceedingly well. The second most important thing to our mother was the temple, specifically Temple Beth Tikva. You already heard from the rabbi regarding the importance of the temple to our mother. It really was one of the most important things in her life. She became Mrs. Beth Tikva, and she loved that recognition. Whether it was the morning minyan, the Renaissance group, or organizing Shabbat dinners, I understand that she really would badger people trying to get them to go to those Shabbat dinners. Mom's life revolved around the temple. There were many times when I would call my mother and tell her that we wanted to stop by and see her, say, the following Sunday, and she would say, well, let me look at my schedule. I've got morning minyan in the a.m., then Bible study from 10 to noon, and a Temple Renaissance field trip that leaves the temple at 2 and gets back late in the evening. So I do have an opening for you and the kids from, say, 1 to 1:30. I'll pencil you in for that time slot. Notwithstanding that example, number one for my mother was family. Making sure that she brought the family together during good times and during the times when we needed each other the most. She followed the tradition of her mother, our Grandma Millie. We grew up living that tradition. Family first. Family mattered. She lived that tradition while she grew up in Summit, and she was very close with her parents, her grandparents, and her sisters, Esther and Betty. When our father, Murray, was alive, my parents' vacations were quite simple. Annually, around the same time each year, they traveled to Florida, where they would stay for 2 weeks with their sister Betty and her husband, Norman. That was all they wanted in a vacation. They didn't need anything more. I'm not sure if they even left my Aunt Betty's condo at any point during those 2 weeks. But that's all they wanted to do, spend time with family. That didn't change after Mom married Howard. My mother continued to vacation with Howard for those same 2 weeks in Florida, and they also stayed with our Aunt Betty. I know that Howard also enjoyed those visits. I think that was one of the traits about Howard that drew him to Mom. He also has an appreciation and love for family. It was an extra bonus for my mother and the rest of the Yospe family for Howard's 3 children and 6 grandchildren to become a part of our family. We are all grateful and appreciative for the relationship that we have had with the entire Moroff family over the past 15 years. That tradition of family first continues, as Mom's nieces and nephews from Florida insisted on coming here today. Aunt Betty's kids, Joyce, Jerry, and Fred. They follow the model of living for family. Growing up, there wasn't anything that our mother would not do for her parents, our grandparents, Millie and Charlie. I know that Martin, Sandra, and I live that motto today and will continue to do that. There wasn't anything we would not do for our mother and father as well, also for each other. Josh, Sam, Ben, and Noah, I hope that registers with each of you, and that you will continue that philosophy in Grandma Mary's honor. Our mother had 46 wonderful years with our father, Murray. She took her marriage vows seriously as she loved him in sickness and in health. His last few years were not quality years during his illness, and she comforted him in those final years. Then came Howard, a ray of sunshine in what otherwise was looking to be a life without companionship for our mother. When they got married, they were both in their 70s, and it made everyone smile as their love for each other was contagious, and it was adorable when they held hands together. Everything was fine until my mother's illness. The last 4.5 years were very difficult years for Howard and my mother, and for all of us who witnessed it. It was very difficult to watch how my mother deteriorated, once a vibrant wife, mother, and grandmother, to someone who then lacked all show of emotion due to the stroke. It is difficult to understand how this happened to her, as my mother had such a strong conviction with God. And as the rabbi said previously, long ago, she had made a pact or an understanding with him. But looking back, I'm sure that in her pact with God, Mom went out of her way to make sure that everyone in her family was protected. But being the unselfish person that she was, she neglected to include herself on the protected list. She sacrificed herself for the rest of the family. While my mother was able to witness my son Sam and Marina's wedding, it hurt us deeply that she was not able to enjoy in her grandson Josh's marriage to Heather, nor would she have been able to witness her grandson Ben's marriage next month to Teresa. Nor was she able to enjoy watching and witnessing her first great-grandchildren, Michaela and Jonathan. I have to add a word of my own here because it's so relevant. Mary loved to dance. And when we would try to get people dancing during worship services, Cantor, you remember? Reformed Temple, people don't jump up and dance so much. We tried, but Mary always did. She would get up and she liked to snap her fingers while she danced. She had a nice hip swing. I can't do it. She would have loved to dance at those weddings. One positive in witnessing what happened regarding my mom's illness, we saw the goodness in people. People who kept Mom's thoughts in their prayers. We are grateful for people like Bill Rothenberg, Bob Molnar, and Rabbi Weiler who continue to visit our mother and check in on her frequently. And I apologize if I left anyone out. But without hesitation, I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the two people who cared for our mother during her illness on a daily basis, Doris and Ruth, two of the finest people you will ever meet. Doris was the primary caregiver for our mother. Doris was the general and Ruth the lieutenant, and they teamed up to give our mother first-rate, top-level care. Of course, for Howard, Ruth was the general, and Doris was the lieutenant. The ladies, as we referred to them, they kept the house running smoothly and caring for both Howard and my mother. Without the primary care that Doris gave to Mom, we doubt that she would have lasted 6 months. And Ruth suspended taking her honeymoon so that she could be with all of us today. She is here today during what was supposed to be her vacation time. She hasn't seen her husband since they married this past summer to be here today. Talk about commitment to excellence. Again, one of our mother's traits. The Moroff residence at 16 Worcester Drive will never be the same, as it lost both my mother and Doris, since Doris will now be leaving to go to another assignment. Doris and Ruth, we are forever grateful to both of you. In closing, I would like to finish with repeating what I started with, highlighting what my mother believed in: the importance of family, the importance of the temple, and giving your all to everything that you do. To Grandma Mary's grandkids, Josh, Sam, Ben, and Noah, if you live your lives following even just 2 of those 3 principles, you will have made your Grandma Mary proud. Amen. Now we pray. O God, we pray that the memory of Mary Yospe Moroff will endure.